So the Chiefs are not only more rested and as healthy as they've ever been this season, but the Bills, well, they are dealing with some injuries with a couple key players trending towards potentially not playing in this game. So I've got to talk about that along with a few more key factors that should help the Chiefs come out of this highly anticipated AFC Championship game with a W. But first, how about those? All right, so time is ticking down to the game of the year, literally right around the corner. Sunday night, Buffalo Bills versus Kansas City Chiefs. Josh Allen against Patrick Mahomes. Sean McDermott versus Andy Reid. Sean McDermott comes from Andy Reid's coaching tree. Then you have Steve Spagnuolo versus Joe Brady, a game that many people are picking the Bills to win, but it's a game that the Chiefs can absolutely win as well. And there's some key matchups that I want to get into about this game, takeaways, standouts. There's a lot to get into as we look into this, and let's get into it. For starters, the Chiefs need to either tie or win the turnover battle against Buffalo. I mean, that kind of goes without saying because every team who's won in the playoffs has basically won the turnover battle. But on the year, the Bills finished with the best turnover differential by a landslide with a plus 24. They only had 8 turnovers on offense, which was the fewest turnovers in the NFL. Josh Allen is actually responsible for all 8, but it's not that many. He lost 2 fumbles and threw just 6 interceptions. He's matured year in and year out and is not making the costly kind of boneheaded interceptions we are used to him throwing, and he's done a great job at just playing some clean football, which is really a recipe for success. With that being said, though, both Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes threw a pick in the first half of their Week 11 meeting that turned into touchdowns by the opposing team. But Mahomes' pick, in my opinion, was a bit more costly because it put the Bills up first and kept KC in catch-up mode, kind of on their heels for the rest of the game. The Chiefs did lead a couple times early because Tyler Bass missed an extra point, but never once led in the second half. So they can't allow the Bills extra opportunities to score because they already average roughly 30 points per game as it is. In fact, Buffalo has scored 27 or more in 11 of their last 13. The only games they scored less than 27 was Week 16 against the Patriots and Week 18 against the New England Patriots when they rested their starters, so don't even count that game. The Chiefs defense, meanwhile, has been playing elite football in the back half of the stretch. Excluding Week 18 when KC rested their starters in that bloodbath with the Denver Broncos, they are allowing just 14 points per game over the last 6. Putting up 30 on these guys will be no easy task, though of course Buffalo was the last time to do exactly that. Josh Allen is playing great football, spreading the ball all around without Stephon Diggs. They kind of remind me of the Chiefs. When the Chiefs traded away Tyreek Hill, everybody started to eat, and that is what it looks like to an extent with Buffalo's offense. Now, here's a couple matchups to keep an eye on. The Chiefs have really struggled against tight ends this year. They are 31st in success rate and 32nd in yards per play when tight ends are targeted. And the Bills have 2 pretty decent tight ends running around the middle of the field, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid was inactive the last time these two teams played, so it's definitely helpful that he's going to be back out there. On the flip side, though, cornerback Jalen Watson was still on injured reserve back in Week 11, and his absence kind of allowed Allen to target any non-McDuffie player out there to great success. Well, Jalen Watson's return is huge for the secondary because that could allow, if needed, McDuffie to travel around and line up against whoever, which may very well even be against Khalil Shakir, Buffalo's most productive wideout that lines up a ton in the slot. McDuffie was a first-team All-Pro slot corner last year, so maybe we see a matchup there quite a bit because Shakir caught 8 passes for 70 yards the last time these two teams met. Curtis Samuel is the next guy to keep eyes on as he had 5 catches for 58 yards in that Week 11 game and even had 68 yards in the wild card round against Denver. The passing game is far from the only thing to worry about, though, because the Bills have a great run attack with James Cook nearly having 200 yards in these 2 playoff games. He was also tied for first in the regular season with 16 rushing touchdowns. Then you can't forget about Ray Davis, as well as Ty Johnson, who is next with 75 yards of his own in the last 2 playoff games. The Chiefs' run defense should be able to keep them in check for the most part. They're top 5 in basically every statistical category when it comes to stopping the run, though they did give up over 80 yards and a touchdown to Joe Mixon last week. Week 11, James Cook had only 9 carries for 20 yards, and then outside of Josh Allen's 26-yard run on 4th down, he had 11 carries for only 29 yards himself. He will be the X factor, though, in a couple of key situations where he will probably use his legs. So the question is, can you stop Josh Allen or slow him down in crucial situations where he's going to use his legs, and then can you bring the guy down? He is a very athletic, tight end bodied quarterback that can throw 60 yards down the field with ease, a very difficult task at hand for sure. Now, Charles Omenihu did not play in their first matchup, and so he's a welcomed addition to the defensive line. They got home to Stroud 8 times last week, but got to Allen 0 in Week 11. Shoot, even the Ravens, one of the most sack-hungry defenses in all of football, only got to Allen 1 time last week, so it's no easy task to bring him down, especially with the dual threat ability he has. I mean, he is the least sacked quarterback in football for a reason. So I'll be curious to see what wrinkles Steve Spagnuolo throws in regarding the blitz. Can they catch Allen off guard and force a mistake or two? I believe the answer is yes, hopefully, and that is what's going to be needed to give the Chiefs a better shot at winning this game. The home crowd at Arrowhead will play a role in this. It's going to make it harder for Allen to communicate things pre-snap based on incoming pressures that could be coming, or at least that he thinks could be coming. A violent chess match indeed, and one that I have faith in Steve Spagnuolo in this defense. Remember, the Bills were home last game, which is a completely different environment when they're out there on offense, able to change everything up at the line with ease. Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in football, though. It's not going to be easy. He's been playing at an elite level, MVP level, all season long, and if the Chiefs want to compete, getting stops, any stops would be very helpful. Easier said than done because the Bills are 7th on 3rd down, 2nd on 4th down, and 2nd best in the red zone. The tush push is basically unstoppable, so holding the Bills to 3rd and longs and or not letting them get inside the 2-yard line and goal line situations could help eliminate that QB sneak a little bit. The Chiefs defense has been stout in the red zone, finishing 7th best and holding opponents to just about 17 points a game this season if you exclude Week 18 when KC rested their starters. Where they did struggle against Buffalo in Week 11 was actually in situations where they wanted them 3rd and long. They allowed 6 different 3rd and longs to be converted, and so hopefully the return of Jalen Watson helps them mitigate that success, but also success in the red zone where Buffalo finished 3 for 4. All right, real quick, I wanted to share a few of my favorite underdog picks for this AFC Championship game on Sunday before we get to the rest of the content. Underdog is the season-long partner of the channel as well as the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. Any new signups who use my code HBTC will get up to $1,000 in bonus cash plus a free Patrick Mahomes pick in the lobby. And I have a few sets of pick'ems for the games this weekend. I'll link them all in the description down below, including this, in theory, very safe 3-legged flexed entry, but I like these 4 picks as well. I hit the higher on both Xavier Worthy and Khalil Shakir's 4.5 receptions. Worthy has had 5 or more receptions in the last 6 games in a row, and I don't see why that stops now. Khalil Shakir caught more than 4 in 4 of his last 6, and also has 6 grabs in each of Buffalo's playoff games. Then I feel good about the higher on Kareem Hunt's 8.5 rushing attempts. That's his average over the last 2 games, yes, but I have a gut feeling they use Hunt more in this one. He had 14 carries against Buffalo last go-round. Next, I had to hit the higher on Hollywood Brown's 29.5 receiving yards because he was in last night's live stream, and I told him I would, but also because Buffalo's secondary is a bit banged up, and I do think Hollywood gets involved here. And with that, I actually put 50 down on this entry for a chance to win 4.13x on my money, and it's a flexed entry, so even if just 3 of 4 hit, I basically get my money back. So to tail these picks or create some of your own, just remember, use code HBTC or click the link in the description down below. All right, now if we flip sides, this is where the game could truly be won or lost. I truly think the Chiefs need to put up around 30 points if they want to win this game. That's why a lot is going to ride on the shoulders of Patrick Mahomes and the offense. If the Bills are vulnerable anywhere, it's definitely their passing defense. They are in the bottom half of most statistics, though to their credit, they did hold Kelsey to just 2 catches for 8 yards last go-around. Playoff Kelsey is a completely different animal, though, with 14 straight playoff games of 70 or more yards. Then in 3 playoff games against the Bills, Kelsey's averaged 8.7 catches for 96.3 yards and 1.7 touchdowns. That's why I think McDermott's going to do everything he can to try and take Kelsey away, and that is where the wide receiver room has to step up, and I believe they can. Buffalo's secondary is a bit banged up. Cornerback Taron Johnson's dealing with a shoulder issue, and at first I thought he was most likely playing, but now I'm not so confident. He fully practiced yesterday, but was downgraded to limited today and was seen with a harness sleeve on his left shoulder. That basically confirms, according to Banged Up Bills, a reliable account that reports on Bills injuries, that Taron had a shoulder dislocation in the Ravens game, which was the initial fear. Well, that means there is a chance he could potentially dislocate his shoulder further in this game and see an early exit. Well, that is big and worth noting. Then safety Taylor Rapp is day-to-day with a hip injury, and I'm honestly not confident he plays at all because he didn't practice yesterday or today. And also, if that wasn't enough, cornerback Christian Benford is currently in the concussion protocol, being limited 2 days in a row. My gut says about these players, Benford clears concussion protocol and ends up playing. Taron Johnson also plays, but won't be 100%, and again, could end up leaving that game early if that shoulder further gets injured. And again, Taylor Rapp ends up missing this one entirely. There's also another player to keep eyes on in linebacker Matt Milano. He's dealing with what is being reported as hamstring soreness after not finishing the last defensive series in the Ravens game and has been limited both days in practice so far. Hamstrings can be very easily aggravated further, so he's also a guy to keep an eye on with the injury report this week. With that being said, though, that's where KC's receiver room has to show up. They were quiet last week, but Mahomes was taking what the defense gave him, and that was the middle of the field with Travis Kelce for whatever reason. I expect Xavier Worthy, the rookie wideout, to get involved as he's been ramping up in productivity the back half of the season. He was second in targets and yards last week, only behind Kelce. So that probably continues there. The next guy to watch out for is going to be Hollywood Brown, a guy who did not play last time because he was on IR. Prior to last week, he averaged 4.5 catches for 45 yards in the 2 games played, and I could very well see that kind of production from him in this one. I mean, with Buffalo's secondary not fully healthy, maybe we even see a deep shot or two go down, but I'm not going to hold my breath. DeAndre Hopkins is an available guy as well. Will catch about anything thrown his way, even though he was only targeted once, catching 0 passes for 0 yards last week. Some say, hey, we think he's playing injured. He was asked about that in his presser, though, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I feel good.
He's not on the injury report, so I guess I'm just going to have to take his word for it. Something else worth noting is that last go-round, tight end Noah Gray caught 2 touchdown passes, and he could be another sneaky target for Mahomes from time to time, with Kelce hogging up the attention. I'll also be curious to see if KC can help the passing game out a bit by establishing the run. Kareem Hunt had 14 carries for 60 yards, a 4.3 average back in Week 11, but the O-line was also Wanye Morris at left tackle, and Joe Thuney was back in his natural position at left guard, where he is elite. Well, it's most likely going to be Joe Thuney at left tackle and Mike Caliendo at left guard for this one, like it was last week, and Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. Again, Pacheco wasn't there Week 11 for what it's worth, and they are going to be splitting the carries in some fashion. If I had my way, though, I would say feed Kareem a bit more, as he's the guy who averaged 5.5 yards a carry last week against Houston. Andy Reid complimented Kareem's running style this week, saying he's got great vision and lateral cutting ability. He also has the knack of being able to cut his body in half sideways and still move it forward in short yardage situations, which is why he's been as successful as he has been. Now, Buffalo finished the year allowing 4.6 yards per rush, which was 23rd in the NFL, so it is possible to find some momentum against them on the ground. You also can't sleep on the fact that Mahomes will not be afraid to use his legs in this one. Believe it or not, but he has the most rushing yards in franchise postseason history, and in the last playoff run, he averaged 35 rushing yards a game, and of his 23 rushing attempts, 9 of them went for first downs. Buffalo did spy Mahomes quite a bit in their last matchup, though, and if that's the case again, it's going to put a little more pressure on the Chiefs' pass catchers to make plays, get open, and make it happen. A spy on Mahomes means one less guy out there in coverage after all, so it could actually help. And then, thankfully, the Bills' pass rush won't be as scary as Houston's, but that doesn't mean it'll be easy. Ed Oliver is a fantastic defensive tackle that could exploit the weakness of Mike Caliendo at left guard. Then Mahomes himself said they need to be aware of the veteran Von Miller at all times. He said Von's a leader on that team and can make a play at any given moment. He was a Super Bowl MVP for a reason, after all. And just last week, Von Miller picked up a fumble and was semi-close to housing it. Then Greg Rousseau has racked up a sack in each playoff game so far, so you can't sleep on that man either. The left side of the line will be the one to watch, as Thuney did give up a sack, 2 QB hits, and 3 pressures last week, and Mike Caliendo gave up 4 pressures of his own. This is the battle to watch in my opinion. Buffalo's defense against KC's offense. If Mahomes can play clean football, doesn't turn it over like he hasn't since playing the Bills last go-around, and he can successfully sustain drives, being one of the best third-down offenses in football should help with this. That will allow them to keep Allen off the field, and if they're able to get 7 inside the 20 rather than 3, they were 3 for 3 in the red zone last time these two teams played, then I love their odds in this one personally. Now, both of these teams' average time of possession was top 10 in the league. Around 30.5 minutes is what they are keeping the ball for. They love to grind their opponents down and establish long, effective drives like that. So it's clearly going to be the goal for both teams, which is why no turnovers are a must. I also can't forget to mention special teams because as we saw last week as the Texans special team unit imploded, this can make or break the outcome of a playoff game. Last year, for example, Tyler Bass missed a game-tying field goal wide right late in the fourth quarter that ultimately helped the Chiefs get the W. KC had no Harrison Butker in the last matchup these two teams played, and they didn't even attempt a field goal. They did go 3 for 3 in the red zone, so Spencer Schrader kicked all 3 extra points. That was nice. Must be replicated. Go perfect in the red zone, please. But in a playoff game of this magnitude, every point is going to matter. Butker was awesome this past week, going 3 for 3 on field goals and making both extra points, and he will probably need to be perfect in this one as well. On the subject of special teams, this is pretty interesting. The Bills are the 5th worst in the league in yards allowed per return. Meanwhile, Nico Remigio nearly housed the opening kickoff last week. So maybe more success is found again this week in the return game, but please, Nico Remigio, for the love of God, 2 hands on the football. Speaking of returners, it's worth noting that Mecole Hardman, wide receiver Mecole Hardman's 21-day window to return officially ended yesterday, and KC did not bring him back to the 53-man roster. That means Hardman is going to finish the season on injured reserve and could have very well played his last game as a Kansas City Chief a handful of weeks ago. It appears his knee didn't get healthy enough to be brought back in time, which means Nico Remigio is going to be the returner once again for this one. Next up, I want to give you some optimism on why I believe the Chiefs can win this game. They have the more seasoned coaching staff. That's no disrespect to McDermott or Brady, but Spags is probably the best defensive coordinator in the game. He should be a Hall of Famer if assistant coaches will ever be allowed to get in. Then Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches to ever do it. No real debate about it. They also have home field advantage, that is real, as well as a day-and-a-half rest advantage. They played early Saturday game, Bills played late Sunday, and have to travel. The Chiefs are also about as healthy as they have been since week 1, and I think the pieces that return for the Chiefs that weren't there in the week 11 game, Jalen Watson, Hollywood Brown, Charles Omenihu, Harrison Butker, is a bigger difference than Buffalo's players who are back but didn't play in Week 11. That would be Spencer Brown, their right tackle. He's great, don't get me wrong. It's also nice for them to have Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman back, but the defense looks completely different with a healthy Jalen Watson and Charles Omenihu out there. And sure, Matt Milano, their linebacker, is also back, but the hamstring has me hesitant to say he's going to be 100% out there flying around. Hollywood Brown then creates a huge wrinkle for Buffalo that was not there before, and with the secondary not 100%, I do think this tips the favor for KC. The Bills might have their rookie second-round pick out there in Cole Bishop if Taylor Rapp is not able to go. That's a lot of pressure on a first-year player. Conference championship at Arrowhead. Don't mess up. Of course, the Chiefs have rookies playing out there as well, but it is something worth paying attention to that the Chiefs might be able to exploit. And while many are picking Buffalo to win this game, I'm not as confident as they are. Honestly, they're not that confident either because as you can see here, the panel of 10 all picked it to be a one-score game, with 8 of 10 thinking it'll be decided by 3 points or fewer. But obviously the majority are going with the Bills getting it done. 4 of the 5 last matchups between these two teams have been decided by 1 score, and over the last 10 games, they are 5-5. I'm not sure that changes in this one. A coin flip, probably a 1-score game, and that's why I have the Chiefs winning 27-24. I think in order to secure a W, the Chiefs have to score 30 points or very close to it. Meanwhile, the defense has to get a couple key stops on Buffalo, even in just the red zone, preventing a touchdown here or there and forcing a field goal. Maybe even one crucial mistake or turnover could make or break this game. You're not going to be able to shut the Bills' offense down completely. They are too good, and Spags himself said that today, giving them nothing but compliments. But the goal is going to be to slow them down just enough, and I do have confidence that if anybody can do it in a game when it matters, it's Steve Spagnuolo in that defense. Now, I'm sure a lot of you want me to talk about the head ref for this one and Clete Blakeman, But I don't think it really matters. The Chiefs are 5-5 with Blakeman since Mahomes became a starter. Meanwhile, Josh Allen is 6-2. Blakeman loves to throw flags, so both teams are simply just going to have to overcome the officiating. I'm not going to be the guy crying about the refs either way if the Chiefs win or lose. I think they win, but you're not going to see me on here whining, moaning, and crying like a toddler about the officiating. I didn't get raised like that. I accept losses like you're supposed to accept them, and that is with humility and not the cop-out, cry-ass response about the officiating. But with all that being said, let me know your thoughts about the officiating crew, as well as your score predictions and main keys to victory in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?